Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship here with another Velocity Banking video. I call this video Velocity Banking Poker Face 102 just to continue the discussion of what I talked about in the Velocity Banking Poker Face 101. I'm probably going to make like 100 videos. We'll be like at 200 soon because it's the most fascinating thing to me. In fact, it's probably more fascinating than me having paid off a mortgage in 2 years and 9 months. Yeah, that's right. I paid off a mortgage in 2 years and 9 months, if you take a look here. And also, I, have over $739,000 in lines of credit and credit cards. I'm sorry, that was just an excuse to use the Vine Boom sound effects. But yes, it is true. In fact, I don't think I even care about this anymore. It's kinda weird, right? Like, it's been over a year since I paid off that mortgage, and like, "Oh, whatever." Old news now, because I made a video every single day about it, and then here, lines of credit, 739,000. Oh, old news now, and I'm just like, "Oh, I'm so bored." But you know what's fascinating? When I show people how to pay off 3 houses, okay, 3 houses under 10 years, which is, 8.75 in the last demonstration. And then I dubbed this phenomenon that I call the velocity banking poker face, right? Which is paying off 3 houses under 10 years. And then the person who I'm presenting it to shows absolutely no emotion and just walks away. I'm like, what? Like, you know what it's like? It's like giving, showing a kid 20 here, I'll give you 20 free Nintendo Switch games and a free Nintendo Switch 2 and showing no emotion. Like, I'll give this to you right now, no strings attached. And then they just walk away with no emotion. Like, what? In fact, I asked ChatGPT about this uh, analogy, but seriously, why can't people just act normal? It's like giving a kid 20 Nintendo Switch games and Nintendo Switch 2 with no excitement, just walking away. Yeah, and ChatGPT made a pretty funny joke. It's like, yeah, that's a great analogy. You're basically handing people the financial equivalent of 20 brand new Switch games in the latest console, and they just walk away quietly like you gave them a brochure for dental insurance. Oh man, brochure for dental insurance. I that's a good one. That's a good one. Oh man. So let's just kind of keep continuing. All right, let's continue this discussion. Did you know I paid off my mortgage in 2 years and 9 months, and I realized that I stopped wanting to share this with people because it's the same reaction, no emotion, and people acting like they didn't hear me. Very strange. How can somebody watch 3 houses be paid off in 8.75 years and say nothing? Run their own numbers, Google the concept, or mention it to a spouse. Let's go ahead and read out loud.
That experience sounds both impressive and isolating. You've done something that takes discipline, risk taking, and persistence, and it makes sense that you'd expect people to feel how big that is when you tell them. When they respond with blank faces, it can feel like they're minimizing it or that they didn't even hear you. Here's what's usually happening beneath that silence. 1. You're describing something most people can't personally imagine. For many, a mortgage is the single biggest, longest debt of their life. When they hear paid off in under 3 years, their brain files it under impossible for me. When something feels unreachable, people often shut down rather than ask how you did it. It protects them from feeling inadequate. 2. Your success can unintentionally trigger comparison. Even if you aren't bragging, hearing I'm mortgage free can poke at other people's financial stress or regret. Instead of saying, "That's amazing," they go emotionally quiet because they don't know how to engage without feeling lesser. Happer 3. They don't know the right social script. Most people rarely hear a peer talk about paying off a house early, so they don't have a ready response. When people don't know what to say, they default to nothing. It's similar to when someone shares a huge personal achievement that's outside our own world. We freeze not from apathy, but uncertainty. 4. Some assume it's luck or exaggeration. It's easier for them to think must be some special circumstance than to challenge their entire view of debt and money. That quiet disbelief looks like indifference. 5. They process privately. A lot of people who act blank will later think about it at home, run their own numbers, Google the concept, or mention it to a spouse. You just don't get to see that part. What can help? Lead with the feeling, not the figure. Instead of starting with, "I paid off my mortgage in 2 years, 9 months, start with, "You know that feeling of sending in a mortgage payment every month? Imagine never doing that again. That happened to me." It invites empathy first, details later. Normalize the disbelief. "I know, it sounds unreal. I didn't think it was possible either." That lets them relax enough to ask questions. Choose your audience. Some people simply aren't ready to engage with a financial breakthrough. Sharing it with people who want to think differently, investors groups, finance communities, curious friends, will feel much better. It isn't that people don't care. It's that what you achieve sits so far outside their mental comfort zone that their default is silence. Would you like me to show you a few conversational ways to tell that story so it lands emotionally and gets real engagement instead of blank stares?
All right. Well, uh, so I don't even know what to say, right? Don't know what to say. But it's so far outside their mental comfort zone. Default is silence. And that's probably what you're going to get to. But no worries. Let's go ahead and just redo this. Really easy, right? Velocity banking. Let's pay off three houses again and make it seem like normal. Just like, oh, just paid off three houses under 10 years. Yeah, everyday occurrence. So who cares, right? All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Velocity banking. What is it? It's a debt payoff strategy where you throw all of your money into debt using something called a line of credit. So we're gonna go ahead and do that here. And so the first step to velocity banking is a budget. So you'll notice I put the tenant income here on the first line, but we're going to start out without any tenant income, meaning we're not a landlord yet. Why? Because we got all this debt, right? We have our personal income, expenses, leftover savings, and then our expense breakdown. We list every single debt that we have, right? 7 credit cards, an auto loan, a mortgage, and then we have our personal expenses that we always have to pay for every single month. And so what we're going to do here is with velocity banking, we're going to have the same income and the same expenses, right? But we're not going to save money. This is like the first, what I call the mental hurdle to doing this, because a lot of people, after they pay their bills, including their debts, feel uncomfortable without having some savings. And what we're going to do is not do that. The way that this works is that we treat our checking account as the middleman, not as the final destination of our money. See, it's just a simple shift. And then what we're going to do is throw it into something called a line of credit. Oopsie. So this would be C3 minus C3, C3 minus C4, and then focus on something called cash flow, which is treated the same as savings in the average American style of banking, but in velocity banking, these are two different things. Yeah, if you check the savings account, it's pretty much going to be zero every single time. And what we're going to do is move some of our debt into something called a line of credit. So if you don't know what that is, a line of credit is basically a tool where you could borrow money, pay it back, and then use it over and over again. So I would show this $373,500 home equity line of credit. And what this allows me to do is click a button on the bank's website, like one of these, and they'll dump up to a certain amount based on your line of credit limit. And in this example, it's 15,000. And then in an instant, you get all that money into a line of credit, okay, or into a checking account, and you just borrow what you need. See, the good thing about lines of credit is that unlike a loan where you have to borrow the 100% at once and then pay back little pieces over time, with a line of credit, you only borrow what you need. I think that's really, really significant, right? Only borrow what you need. So a lot of people freak out about interest rates, right? So if you borrow $1 million at 3%, that's way worse than borrowing like, 20, 40, 50 grand at like 8%. Okay. Um, so just kind of be aware of that, right? So $373,500 home equity line of credit and the interest rate is 8.5%. And like I said before, I have all these lines of credit, including credit cards. A credit card is a line of credit. You swipe, pay it back, use it over and over again. And if you take a look here, I'm just gonna repeat this one more time again. I have over $739,000 in lines of credit. Yeah, I do. I'm sorry. I just wanted to use that again. Yeah, I do. $739,000 in lines of credit, which makes it top 0.01%. Top 0.01%. In fact, let me just ask ChatGPT if I tell people that I have over 739K in lines of credit, do you think they will react with a poker face?
Most likely, yes. You'll still get some version of that poker face, but the reason why depends on what they emotionally hear, not what you actually say. Let's break down what's going on here. What you mean when you say it. Open quote. I've built serious financial leverage and liquidity, access to 739 calories in credit that works like rocket fuel for investing or cash flow acceleration. Close quote. You're talking about strategy, discipline, and freedom. What they hear. Open quote. I have access to more money than most people make in 10 years. Close quote. That triggers a very different set of emotions. Envy or self comparison. I'll never have that kind of credit line. Skepticism. How's that even possible? Must be risky. Discomfort. I wouldn't know what to do with that. Confusion. Wait, is that debt or available credit? Their brain instantly categorizes it as status information, not educational insight. And since money and status are socially charged topics, they freeze up. Poker face mode engaged. What their poker face actually means. They're trying to process three questions at once. One, is this something I should admire or be scared of? Two, how does that even work? Three, am I supposed to respond with congratulations or concern? When the social script isn't clear, silence is the default. How to get around the poker face. You can short circuit that reaction by framing it as empowerment, not bragging. Try reframing like this. Open quote. One of the coolest parts of what I've learned is how to build access to capital. I've built about 739 count dollars in available credit lines that I can use strategically. It's not about spending it. It's about leverage and control. Most people don't realize banks will reward you if you know how to use money efficiently. Close quote. Now it sounds educational, not intimidating, and you've invited curiosity instead of comparison. The pattern you're running into. Every time you share something financially extraordinary, paying off houses, massive credit lines, high cash flow, you're colliding with people's money identity. Most people's internal reaction isn't open quote, wow, that's awesome. It's, wait, what does that mean about me? Close quote. And that self check moment manifests as a blank face. So, yes, you'll probably see poker faces again when you mention the 739 Kellas. But if you frame it as insight instead of achievement, they'll stay open instead of frozen. Would you like me to show you some specific language patterns or phrases that make people lean in with curiosity when you talk about numbers like that?
You know what I gotta do? I gotta say yes to this, so maybe I can um be a little bit more relatable. But we gotta finish the demonstration. But yes, I do have over $739,000 in lines of credit. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm addicted to sound effect. I'll probably get bored of it by the next 2 videos. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're here or actually, let me go over this. I didn't go over the secret of how I got all these lines of credit, but I will tell you the secret right now that the bank will never tell you. is banks don't lend money to people who need it. Okay. So how did I get all these lines of credit? It was simple. I just went to a bank when I did not need money, right? You see how simple that was? Oh, I don't need money today. Oh, let's go to a bank. And then bam, over the course of, I'll say 3 years, I got over $739,000 in lines of credit. Now, in this example, we do need money. Okay, we do need money. So, is the bank willing to give you a free and clear $260,000 line of credit? No, they're probably not because you need money. So, the way you have to think about this is that this line of credit is kind of like your car insurance, right? You need to get the car insurance before you drive the car, not after you crash it. And then you didn't have car insurance, right? That doesn't, you don't get car insurance after you crash the car without insurance. Okay, but that's that because people don't know how to think about lines of credit correctly, and they don't understand the bank is kind of like the same as a risk management institution, like an insurance company. They just think that they can go to a bank when they need money. No, 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 no. You don't go to a bank when you need money. But I like to demonstrate like this because it's so easy to demonstrate the benefits of car insurance after you crash the car without car insurance. It's really easy, right? All right, so let's go ahead and demonstrate how we know which debts to pay off. We use something called the cash flow index. Really easy formula. It's the balance of the debt divided by the payment, and then you just do it for all the debts, and then you get like a ranking system. So this is a sort order of the debt, right? The sort order of the debt and or ranking of the debt. And the lower the number, that means you get more bang for your buck for paying off the debt. And then the higher the number, that's like paid off last, right? So what does that mean? It's in a quote efficient debt, meaning that you pay too much money just to get a little bit of cash flow. You pay $220,000 to only get $927 back in your life. That's really bad. That's really bad compared to this 30,000 you get over $1,000 of cash flow back in your life, right? And then so what we're going to do here is we're going to move these credit cards into the Z line of credit, right? And so I'm going to do 5, 8, 15, 27, 37, 10. I'm going to sum these all up, right? So that's $102,000. And then guess what happens when we move all these credit cards into the line of credit? This is the most amazing thing, okay? So it's 7 credit cards. We literally went from $249.88 to $3,500 of cash flow. And then the final step is that you put your entire paycheck into the line of credit. You take your expenses out, and then you rinse and repeat over and over again, right? That's what you do. You rinse and repeat over and over again, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and do the calculations. Whoopsie, what am I doing? It should be I3 plus 1, not I2. All right, so now what we do is just do this minus. I'm getting screwed up because I added an extra row because of the tenant income. So 3563.21. So basically get the next month's balance based on the previous month's balance interest. You combine them and then you subtract the cash flow. And then what you do to get the next interest is take the average daily balance, right? Because that's how lines of credit calculate the interest. Divide by 12. And then I'm going to do this. All right. And then it's 32 months. Okay, 32 months, right? So we see that for these first 7 credit cards, 32 months, it's going to be 102K. All right, 102K. And then we got the auto loan and the mortgage. So let's just go here in 32 months. I've actually done this from previous demonstration, but we take this out, right? You see that this is a loan calculator. It shows you the current balance based on the month. And then so what I do is if I go here and then I add this to the line of credit, we're going to pay off the car loan, 8303.5. And then what we're going to do is this is going to be 0, right? And then this is going to be $3,872.47 of cash flow. Okay. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to do this, update the cash flow, 3872.47. And then what we're going to do here, right? We just paid off the car loan in 34 months. That was easy. All right. I think I got some snot in my throat. I don't think I'm sick because I don't feel sick, but I think after this video, I just gotta relax, right? Maybe showing off, paying off 3 houses is a little bit stressful. I'm about to saying, relax, relax, don't do anything. Okay, I might do that after this video. All right, so now, what to do here? So, my personal philosophy is that w- you should not get a rental property until you feel comfortable that if you don't get the money the tenant is going to pay you, um, actually, let me rephrase that. I would not ever get a rental property if I ever needed to depend on the tenant's money, right? So if the tenant owes you $2,000 of rent, I don't know how much cash flow that is. It's only about 100, $200 a month in cash flow in the best case scenario. Okay. So, and you can actually verify this in Bigger Pockets. So, Bigger Pockets blog, good cash flow, the biggest real estate investing website on earth. Update for 2025. Even when the market was great for investors, most investors would say good cash flow was about $200 per month. So if this $200 per month, think of that the tenant gives you $2,000 of rent, you only get $200 per month. Um, if you can't handle the tenant giving you $2,000, or I'm sorry, that $2,000, and it's going to be the end of your life, this is my personal philosophy. Don't get a rental property, right? Rental property obviously has benefits. It's a wealth building tool, but it's not like a beginner wealth building strategy or income building strategy, right? Like you can't live off of one rental property. It's impossible. Like what you would have to do in order to live off of rentals is probably scale, get a gajillion of them. Like every time I hear people getting apartments, they don't have like a 7 unit apartment. They have like 100 units in order to live their lives, right? So I've heard that before. Maybe like 10 Airbnbs, that would be pretty sweet if you have the Airbnbs in the right area. But so the thing I want to emphasize is that you don't get a rental property until most of your debt is paid off and you're okay with the tenant not paying you. Because if you depend on a tenant's money, guess what? They have leverage over you. Whereas if you don't depend on tenant's money, guess what? You could be selective with the tenant. You can kick them out whenever you want. Well, you not whenever you want, but if they don't pay the rent, and that's financial power that you actually need to have. You know, and if you don't have it, it's kinda like having a gun with no bullet in it, right? You want the leverage and the power to do what it is that you need to do, okay? Yeah, which is just to collect the rent. You're not taking anybody out, okay? Alright, so let's go ahead and say, "Hey, all my debt's paid off except for the mortgage. My mortgage is relatively cheap and then I need a rental property. Okay. Now, we can get a rental property two ways: loan or line of credit. I would prefer to get a loan, but it's easier to demonstrate this with the line of credit, right? And sometimes it's harder to get the loan because the thing that trips me up about getting a loan is that pretty much every single loan officer or whatever you call them, broker, always wants to see 2 to 3 months of like reserves in a checking account or savings account. And if you follow this velocity banking to a T, they're going to see zero and then they're going to freak out. So it might actually be easier with the line of credit if you don't want to do that. But I would actually prefer a loan just because, if you have a $200,000 line of credit and you use the whole 200,000 for the purchase and the repairs of a house, then you don't have that much leeway. Whereas if you have like a $200,000 loan and a $200,000 line of credit, then if something goes wrong, you have like some leeway, right? So that's why I prefer to get the loan. But we're going to demonstrate this with the line of credit. And so what we're going to do is now get some rental properties. And the first rule of rental properties or properties in general is you need to buy it at a discount, right? Buying at a discount is probably the biggest strength that real estate has compared to any other asset class, right? Buying it at a discount is the most important thing, right? And if you can't buy it at a discount, buy it in an area where you know it's the market is gonna go crazy, all right? I saw a news story today about a home in San Francisco. It's like 2 bed, 1 bath, listed for $1.2 million, and someone offered 2 million for it, right? So you might wanna buy it at full price even there. I don't know if that's true or not, if you can afford it, but for quote us normies, and I still consider myself to be a normie as of now, you gotta buy it at a discount. So $300,000 property, you gotta buy it for 200. $200,000 property, you gotta buy it for 100. $100,000 property, you gotta buy it for probably $10,000, right? And so if you buy it at a discount, you can make some repairs, and then you have built-in equity, built-in gain, right? Whereas if you buy it for market value, you don't have any gain, or it's hard to kind of make money. In fact, I've actually seen YouTubers, real estate investors talk about how they bought properties at market value, then sold at a huge loss. That was weird. Okay, I might actually react to that video, but it's crazy. Um, some of the what I consider really bad deals a lot of some people have made, but they own a lot more properties than I do because I only own this one little itty bitty Airbnb property that makes 5 grand in revenue in about 4 to 5. I'll say 3 to 5 grand of revenue in a month. Okay, so crazy. All right. So what am I even talking about? I don't even know. I don't even know what I'm talking about. Right? All right. So let's go ahead and get a rental property. And what we're gonna do is say, hey, we're gonna be all in for $200,000. Okay. So to get that discount, you need to find a distressed seller, distressed property, something that needs a little bit of work where you can negotiate it and the seller kind of knows that it needs work, right? You're not looking for the house on the hill. And so we'll go $200,000 on, including the whatchamacallit, the repairs, right? Now, there is a little bit of unrealisticness towards this because we're assuming that, as soon as we buy it, we get a tenant in there, which is not true. We might have to wait like 3 months to get it rental ready, find a tenant, and all that other stuff, right? So this is a little bit maybe a lag time from purchase to tenant, but it's okay. Let's just kind of do cowboy math. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna assume that we have $2,000 of income each month from a tenant, right? So that's probably the rent of the area, and the rent is not proportional to the price, right? Like if you buy $1 million property in like San Francisco, the most of rent you're probably gonna get is like 3 to 5 grand a month. So it's kind of funny how that $1 million property in San Francisco will get you only 3 to 5 grand a month, but this, $200,000 property that I bought is not netting me. It's giving me about 5 grand a month in revenue, right? It's crazy, right? So the purchase price and the rent, two totally different numbers that really have nothing to do with each other, right? It's just the dynamics of the market that for some reason in certain places people will pay a lot of money just to purchase it, but then pay not that much money to rent it, right? All right, so now let's go ahead and get started here. So we have our tenant's income. Now, what we just as a general rule, we assume that 70% goes to you and 30% goes to expenses, so which is why we multiply by 70%, right? And then we got to add the tenant's income to our cash flow. Okay. So now our cash flow is about 5 grand. 5 grand. Okay. So let me just go here, update this 5 grand, and that'll be minus 5272.47. And then we see that this is paid off in 78 months, right? So you can approximate the time to pay off 78 minus when we started investing in real estate, which is 34 months. So how much was that? That was, let me just do this, 78 minus 34. So 44 divided by 12. Wow, less than 4 years for a house? Yeah. So, and I actually did this from the previous demonstration. Um, right. And then we just do it again. We find another house at a discount. And the beauty of this is that, if you're a busy person, I'm pretty sure you could find one house in a year, right? Like you just got to send like a couple hundred letters. Okay. And then same thing with the second house. So You know how there are people out there who buy like 20 houses in like a year? You could just buy one house every couple of years. It doesn't have to be like 20 in 1 year. I think that would stress me out, I'm gonna be honest, like, dealing with 20 tenants who only give me $200 a month in cash flow in the best case scenario, I'll be like, "F that." Right? So, let's get the second house. It's the same thing, right? You just do right here, plus 200,000, right? 200,000. And then this is gonna be multiplied by 2. And then our cash flow is about 6 grand. And then someone mentioned in a previous video about, maybe you can increase the expenses over time. But here's the other thing too. The reason I don't do that is because your income will probably increase over time as well. Like your rent is probably going to increase over time. So it'll probably just kind of be a wash. So, I mean, I get that, but 6672.47. And then let's go ahead and demonstrate. All right. So we see here that in 112 months, we paid off the second house, right? So look how easy that is. Okay. And then we just do the same thing over here. The other $200,000 house for 300,000, buy it at a discount. I mean, look at that. This is the what you call the Shiat. This is the Shiat. That's what the word you used to use back in the day to describe something is incredibly good, right? And then I think the current generation just says skibbity toilet, something something Ohio or something like that. All right, 8072.47. Okay. And all right. So now we see that 139, third house paid off. 139. Okay. So you see, all right, and actually let me just do this, okay? Let me do this. Now that we paid off, whoopsie, 3 houses. Now that we paid off 3 houses, did I do this right? Yeah. Let's do our own personal home. Okay, own personal home. And so what we do right here is we just got to put in 139 months, and then we see the current balance of the home. So we see that a good chunk of it has been significantly paid off. And then we can use the velocity banking calculator to kind of determine or estimate what the payoff is for this person. Okay. So let me just put the expenses here. And what's our income? It's this plus this. So that's going to be 4,200 time plus 6,800. So 4,200 plus 6,800. So that's 11 grand. Whoa, we make 11 grand. Holy balls. No wonder we're paying this off so quickly. All right. So now let's do 11 grand as a chunk amount. And then we have to put in the correct current balance, which is, where are we? 157,343.71. 157,343.71. Okay. Whoa, 1.5 years. Let's increase this to 3,000 because we're living a little bit baller. And then we see that if we increase our budget to $1,000, it just goes 0.7 or 0.2 years, right? So, if we're, we don't ever need to make, and $2,000, I don't know if that's a lot these days. So you see 1.5 years, and then I did that, and then let me just gonna go here. And so what's 139 plus 1.5? 139 divided by 12. So that's yeah, so 13.08 years, right? And we paid off. So what's the value of this home? So we paid about 220, and then usually you put like a 20% down payment. We'll just say it's worth about 270, right? So 270 or 280. I don't know. We'll just say 280 in equity. But then we don't get any cash flow because, in fact, you could actually think of your personal residence as negative cash flow in a way. Well, not really. We don't have the debt anymore. Somebody messaged me, sorry. Okay, so what was I saying? Yeah, actually, the negative cash flow is just part of the expenses, right? But what I'm saying is this, right? We're not making any income off of that. So, but we get an additional $280,000 of equity, and actually, we do get additional cash flow, don't we? Yeah, this is 0 now. So now it's $9,000 of cash flow in total. Okay, $9,000. So maybe I'm saying this is 0 cash flow because we're not getting from a tenant. I'm probably just thinking about this wrong. But yeah. Yes. So I don't even know what to say. It's so boring. Paying off 4 homes in about 13 years. Yeah, that's kind of sus, people. Walk away. Actually, so here's the thing. This is what I'm going to end with. If you watch till the end of this video, okay, and you want to let me know, type in the comments below that this is not a brochure for dental insurance. Okay, this is not a brochure for dental insurance. That will let me know if you've made it to the end of this video. All right, have a great day, everybody, and I'll see you all on possibly Velocity Making Poker Face 103. This is Korean Latin Mentorship.